So there's been some talk lately that LaMelo Ball could be falling in the draft. There's been talk about his interviews not going well, and the first thing that I think about, honestly, is just when you look at the top 3 teams, I feel like all 3 of them can rationalize not selecting LaMelo in terms of fit, right? The Wolves could say him and D'Lo wouldn't work together. The Warriors could say there's not a lot of room between Steph, Clay, and LaMelo. And then the Hornets could be like, well, we like Devontae, we like Rozier, we need a big man more than anything else. Now, if I was any of those 3 teams and I believed that LaMelo was the best player available, then I would just pick him and I would worry about the fit later on. It's been talked about quite a bit that LaMelo, while he is extremely talented with his playmaking and breaking down defenders and all that, there is also a chance that his shot selection, his decision making, that type of stuff is going to be a little bit of a process. He has not been exactly praised for his consistency on defense either. When you combine that with teams being like, well, does he really fit with us? I can kind of understand why this sort of thing might be out there. As far as the interviews stuff, I mean, unfortunately for LaMelo, almost his entire life has been on the internet since he was, 13, 14, 15, whatever. I don't know the exact age. I didn't follow the Ball family that closely. But there was talk about how he was a bit immature and not professional enough, and I mean, that's pretty much any teenager. And I don't know how LaMelo has been the past couple years, but there's a chance the teams had this perception of him beforehand in these interviews, of which I don't know how many interviews there have been. Could only be one interview for all I know. But there's a chance that they went into those interviews with a preconceived idea of LaMelo, and it would have been impossible for him to impress them without coming across as like a 35-year-old. Now, at the same time, maybe they were fair with LaMelo and he didn't say the right things. I don't know. I don't even know what they ask in these interviews. So there's that. I think there's also the LeVar factor as well. Teams might be a little freaked out about him. I mean, yeah, he's backed off with Lonzo, but who knows if the same thing would happen with LaMelo. There's a chance you'd have to deal with that headache every single day. And if you combine that with a player that you're perhaps not in love with after interviews and all that stuff, then okay, that could be a thing. LaMelo could end up being the best shot creator out of everybody in the top 5, 6, whatever you want to say. I mean, Anthony Edwards is probably the other candidate there, just because he's a bulldozer going to the rim, but he's probably not going to have LaMelo's handle. He's certainly not going to have LaMelo's passing potential. So he's a very interesting prospect, but to think about the fit a little more with these top teams, I mean, to me, the easiest one for the Wolves is probably Anthony Edwards. You can put him in the wing position. D'Lo can still do his thing. Towns can still do his thing. And then Edwards can find a way to fit into all that, you know? Wiseman is the easiest fit for the Warriors. He's also the easiest fit for the Hornets. Of course, there's always the chances of some of these picks getting traded. The other thing with Charlotte is if they were determined to get a big guy, they could go with Okongwu. And I think there's some reason to believe Okongwu can be better than Wiseman. He's certainly a better fundamental player, he's better defensively, all that stuff. Now, I should mention Chicago at number 4. To me, if LaMelo falls to number 4, the Bulls can't let him go. I mean, they need playmaking, and it's awkward because they have a bunch of guards between Levine, Satoransky, Chris Dunn, Kobe White, and yet they still need more passing. I guess the easiest fit could be Denny for them, just because he's a playmaking small forward, and I mean, Otto Porter just can't stay healthy with them pretty much, and that would be the way to get more passing without loading up on the guard spots. But if you've got a chance at LaMelo and you're Chicago, I feel like they're going to do it. Although if you wanted to be cynical of the Zach LaVine, LaMelo Ball backcourt, I do think you could have a case there. Especially if the fears about LaMelo's decision-making as well as his defense end up being true. Now, of course, there's a lot of wings besides Denny, and maybe Chicago would look at one of them, whether it be Devin Vassell or Halliburton or Isaac Okoro or maybe even Killian Hayes if they wanted another guard, but they just didn't want LaMelo. So there's a chance they would go that route. But I don't know, my gut just kind of feels like if the Bulls passed on LaMelo, then they would have really had to not liked the guy. Which I guess could be possible based on these reports. As for the Cavs at number 5, I mean, they would have to really like Darius Garland to not select Lamelo. I think Lamelo and Sexton could play together. I feel like I've been a bit of a Colin Sexton hater. I might have even called myself that once. I think Sexton is good. I mean, he's a good shooter, good scorer on pretty okay efficiency. Yeah, he's got problems, but Sexton's good to me. Garland, I wouldn't be too upset about picking a point guard over Garland, and we'd have to see if the Cavs would feel the same way. But I guess, if there's a crazy world in which, like, the Wolves, the Warriors, and the Hornets wouldn't want him for reasons I've talked about already, fit, that sort of thing, and the Bulls were thinking more along the lines of going for a wing at small forward, I would imagine, and the Cavs really liked Garland, then you get to Atlanta at 6, then it's like LaMelo and Trae Young. That's kind of dicey. The Pistons at number 7, I think that would be a interesting spot for LaMelo, especially if they brought Christian Wood back. Even as I'm saying this, I just feel like, would he really fall to number 7 or even number 8 to the Knicks? I just feel like that's such a fall from a guy who was a consensus, top 3 dude for this entire process. Although, for what it's worth, when I think about my favorite LaMelo team out of the top 7, it actually kind of is the Pistons, because I feel like LaMelo could have the ball all the time. I figured they would get off of Derrick Rose if this happened. And then, he's got Kennard to pass to, who can shoot, and Svi Mikhailuk, whose last name I pronounced wrong a million times. He can knock down shots. Christian Wood, if they re-sign him. Maybe Blake's healthy, I don't know. But I guess the other thing to think about is if this rumor is true about LaMelo potentially falling, then it should also be talked about again like a team trading their pick. I mean, it's already been reported that the Hawks want to trade their pick. Of course, we've heard enough things about the Warriors wanting to move off of number 2. We've heard some things about the Hornets maybe wanting to move up if they're that desperate for probably Wiseman. And that opens up some potentially wild things with the Knicks perhaps being the team who's like, well, LaMelo's falling, but we're already at number 8. We might have to jump up a couple of spots, even if it's with Atlanta, and then the Hawks move down 2 spots, and maybe the Knicks could get LaMelo that way. And then I think about LaMelo playing under Tom Thibodeau, and that would be the ultimate, all right, let's see how professional LaMelo really is, sort of thing. I should also say, I wouldn't be shocked if the Warriors fell in love with Okongwu. Just seems like such a Warriors type of big guy, But that's not really related to this. I think that's all I got on LaMelo. We'll see what ends up happening. I do have a little announcement. I have a second channel for movies and TV shows, and I'm going to talk about The Mandalorian on there. So it's called AFunkyDiabetic Reviews. I know, very creative. The link is in the description. The link will be in the pinned comment, which sometimes doesn't even end up being pinned. It's weird, YouTube. So yeah, I already got episode 1 for season 2 up on that one, and that's it. LaMelo Ball.